It's an extraordinary treat to be here at La Mama, home to the international theater world. I'm Joan Firestone, and my better half is Linda Chapman. It's been a treat to work as directors bringing this together. It's also appropriate that we are starting with Theater in the Streets. Theater in the Streets started in 2020. And then our moderator, Melody Brooks, brought it into her own theater, New Perspectives Theater, a theater she started 30 years ago, one of the first to express equity, diversity, and inclusion, and artistic excellence all rolled in together. Melody has been a force for the League of Professional Theater Women, and for us and for me last year with the Gilder Coigney Award program, and for this year as well. I know and have met all of the people who you are going to hear today, and I promise you will have an extraordinary time. Thank you.
I'm going to try to do this without, my cheat sheet, but if I have to look, just excuse me for a second. I'm Melody Brooks, and this is Hanane Hajj Ali, and this is the Theater from the Streets panel. Joining us on Zoom are Iman Aoun and Dominique La Victoria. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about, yes, go ahead, please. A little bit about the Theater from the Streets program. In 2021, one of the silver linings of Zoom was that for the first time, all of our nominees, or most of them from 2020, were available online. And so the connections could be built. And we had gathered in May of 2021 to see how we could further this collaboration and network right at the time that Gaza was being invaded. And Iman, who's with us today, who's in Jerusalem, coming to us from Jerusalem, was, because she was present and this was happening, we realized we couldn't just have a chat about how do we stay connected, but that we wanted to think about how our work as theater women could form a response. And a smaller group met, and by then the ceasefire had been declared, but we decided that this is not the only, place in the world that needs a light shown on it, and from new perspectives. That certainly in the West, we hear stories about these conflicts that come through the state, the federal government, or corporate media. And talking to people who are actually living there and experiencing what is going on was really necessary. And the medium of theater has always been used, from time immemorial, to shed light on issues that need to be addressed by a larger community. And so we just decided we would do Theater from the Streets. We made it up. And 3 of the nominees from that year became our curators. Lupe Garenbeck from Venezuela, who's here with us today. And she's moderating another panel. And Iman Aoun in Palestine. And, you get two, Iman. And Malika Sarabhai in India. So it was a learning experience for us. You're going to hear a little bit more about it as we talk. We were then able to do round 2 in the Philippines, and Dominique was one of our moderators in the Philippines, and then Hungary. And just a little plug, all of these programs are available on the New Perspectives YouTube channel. So I had given 3 questions to our panelists, and there are bios in the booklet that you have or in the QR code. I have them here, but these women are so extraordinary that I could take all the panel time to tell you who they are. Hanane has been working in the Middle East and North Africa region for many, many years. Award-winning artist, teacher, trainer, activist, and I could say that of all 3 of them. Iman is the founder of the Ashtar Theater, and has done a lot of work in the same region, but also prominently brought the Gaza monologues around the world and to the UN here, which were created by young people living in Gaza. And Dominique is also a theater maker, educator, theater, more than that, a scholar of theater, and her moderation of the panels or the work in Philippines was deeply impressive. And use your QR code. You'll get to read their bios in full. I don't want to shortchange them, but I also want you to actually hear from them and not from me. So my first question was that one of the things that we discovered in our first round, India, Venezuela, Palestine, was the commonality that these were areas in which people are experiencing increased authoritarianism, loss of civil rights, violence, that weren't in communication with each other. So Theater from the Streets brought them together and discovered that a lot of these themes are really common, and the use of theater is very valid to educate people. We also had an invited audience on our Zoom performances, so our moderators curated that discussion. So I want to ask our panelists, and we'll start with you, Hanane, because you're here. Why, and you did participate in some of the Theater from the Streets sessions, why is it important that we hear these stories directly from the people who are living there?
Allow me to ask you to begin with Iman and
okay,
colleague,
Iman,
because they are here, and I want to honor them in my way.
Okay, so. Okay. So if you could just give us, we'll start with you, Iman. Iman was our very first curator in Palestine, was our very first venture into the Theater from the Streets program.
Thank you, Melody, and thank you, Hanane. And of course, this is an honor to be with all of you today. And let me just say congratulations also for our new friend, who won?
Petrona.
Yes. It's a little bit overwhelming to really talk about what had happened 2 years ago, how we started, as you said, Melody, while Gaza is under constant attack at the moment, and we are hearing the bombing, and we are hearing the airplanes, and of course this time it's even stronger and more frightening, because the US is participating a great deal. So why is it important to hear the voices of the people on the ground? Because usually we do not hear them. Usually we take it for granted that those are the bad ones, and those are the good ones. Those are the terrorists, and those are the victims. And so we label the people. We label usually the underdog. We label the people who do not have space to shout out or to reach out to the international community. So this particular project came to give voice to those who are not heard. And thanks to this opportunity that we all have succeeded to do, we have given voice to some of our artists back in Gaza, but also in the West Bank, to really share what they have to say in Palestine about the attack, the continuous attacks. And it is not really, it is very peculiar, the fact that every 2 years Gaza is under attack, and the world goes on, and nothing political had been done to change the situation. We keep on thinking that we, the artists, are doing what we have to do, and we are putting forth the voices of the people, giving platform to the unheard stories, but nothing on the ground is being changed. We are not able to really change the mentality and the decision-making forces of the politicians. And that had been one of the things that we've been talking about since day one among us, the people here sitting here and in the Women's League, thinking of what can we do in order to change the politicians' mentality. What more can we do? Should we start with the young people or with the youth inside the universities? That's why the idea of the book that you're working on at the moment is going to come out. It's awareness raising. It is making a difference in the mentality of the majority bit by bit, but we need always more. We need more voices, we need more stories, and more solidarity among us. I don't want to take the whole floor talking without...
Do you want to take your turn now, and then we'll hear from Dominique?
Yes, I wanted Iman especially to begin because of what's happening in Palestine since some days, and because since 1948, massacres and wars and invasions are happening, and nobody is giving attention to hundreds and thousands and millions of killed people and refugees. Yesterday, I was looking. I said to myself, I want to open the CNN because the CNN breaking news is something flashy, second by second, and we can maybe hear about every comment from all over the world about what's happening. So I was astonished to see that the CNN made a floor of 5 minutes to a young girl talking about her boyfriend, how he went to rescue some people who are being persecuted, in between brackets, and he disappeared. And the speakerine was keeping on asking her question after question, because in 10 seconds she told everything she wanted to tell, and so she kept on telling her, oh, this is really, I'm very sorry, what can we do for you, etc., etc., etc. And I asked myself, my goodness, since 1948, nobody had a space like this, because as if we were in the same house. I don't mind to hear all everybody who wants to really testify or who really wants to express freely himself or herself. But this is very important because why there is no equity, and why we are keeping on seeing through one eye, or blindly following what media is telling. Anyway, I remember now. Allow me to tell you that yesterday I made an experience. I asked ChatGPT to tell me why theater is important, and I have a list of really tens of recommendations. Of course, they are all valid because ChatGPT is gathering every experience and put it melting very, very smartly. But I want now to talk from heart to heart, to really benefit from this live encounter, to for example, why the Gaza monologues are important, because it was, Gaza is a big prison since 2016, right? 2006 or 16?
No, 6.
6, that's it. 6 is a big prison. And deprived from water, electricity. There are invasion every while and then, killing, bombing, etc. And nobody is really telling anything about it. So Ashtar Theater came, and since 2000, year 2000, they gathered, I don't know how many, maybe 50 fellows. They visited 80 cities in 40 countries. The Gaza monologues were translated into 18 languages, and everywhere that those monologues went and performed lively, it raised really important questions, important dialogues, and the history began, at least in a very small scale, began to be written by the oppressed and not by the oppressors. This is very important. Milo Rao, for example. Milo Rao is, I don't know if you know about Milo Rao, this very important, brilliant theater maker. He's touring the world, talking about massacres in Rwanda. He made a piece which called The Hate Radio. Very important piece about what's happening through a radio station. He's not doing, he's not politicizing things. He's not doing, political discourses, but he's brilliantly through theaters. And because theater can reveal the complexity and the multiplicity of a complex question, it's using metaphors, and it's using images and everything. So he did the Hate Radio. Lately he did Antigone in the Amazon, where he did an enactment of the largest massacre of the military police against the landless movement of in the scene of crime in the Amazon. And I really put here in front of me a very, very nice sentence. Those people, their slogan are, "We cultivate the land and the land cultivates us." This is a wonderful, wonderful slogan. And while they are massacred by the police and killed, and everybody is standing behind the oppressors, behind the dictators, like what's happening for Netanyahu, like what's happening for Hafiz al-Assad, like what's happening to every oppressor. They don't care. The superpowers, they don't care about what's happening to people. They want to sell arms to make profit. That is their only really aim. So the media, and that's why you were very right when you tell theater, when you tell poetry, when you tell all sorts of arts. But theater has maybe the upper hand because it's unite us. There is this agora, there is this encounter, there is this chaleur, this is this warmth. There is this. We can talk. We can fight each other, but with logic and with emotion and with facts, and that's it.
Okay.
I have a poem for Mahmoud Darwish till
Well,
the
maybe
end.
we'll put that at the. We'll let you finish us with that when we come to the end. Yes, and these are extraordinary pieces that Hanane has mentioned. Obviously, as a small theater company in New York, we weren't capable of doing that. We asked for short 3 to 5 minute pieces by a number of different artists in different themes. And one of the really important jobs of our moderators was to put this theater work in context. So we understood why that piece was being presented. And Dominique was really fabulous at doing that for us for the Philippines. But I also think overall the question, and for any of you, if you want to use your experience in those sessions for Theater from the Streets, obviously you can, but also outside of that, because you weren't one of the artists creating the work for us, Dominique, you were helping us to understand and experience it in a way that would inform and educate us. So take it away.
Hi everyone. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. To go back to the question of why it's important to hear directly from those who are experiencing state oppression. I think coming from the perspective of the Philippines, it's the most important reason is necessity. Suppression of journalists and news outlets has always been a mainstay of authoritarian regimes, and the most recent Nobel Peace Prize winner, Maria Ressa, a journalist from the Philippines, has been targeted repeatedly by the Duterte regime, a regime which saw the closure of a major news and television network in the middle of a pandemic. So if the residents of the Philippines, if the residents of these countries can't trust the news coming out in official news outlets, how much more can we even trust that people in the West or in the US or Europe or elsewhere really are actually hearing about these conditions? So, like Maria Ressa said, our information ecosystems are in danger. So, hearing directly from those who are experiencing these oppressive conditions, it means that we are getting the information from trusted, unbiased sources. And I think social media has done a good job of leveling the playing field, even though it's very tricky, the role of social media. I mean, in the Philippines, there's a sort of running there's a sort of running joke or running statement that when an earthquake or a blackout happens, people are quicker to check Twitter or Facebook for confirmation because they know that the official news outlets will be late on the news. And, I myself have been guilty of this. So hearing the stories directly from those living in the everyday is valuable because we're receiving the information unfiltered, undoctored, and unbiased.
Yes, thank you. The second question I was going to ask, I think I'm going to modify just a bit because Hanane, you touched on it, as did you, Dominique. And I was going to say, let's talk a little bit about why theater is so effective in these spaces. I think that I'm talking to, the choir here in this room. But one of the things that we struggle with and are still trying to make happen is that we have this extraordinary work, and it is on our YouTube channel. And our goal initially, now it's only been 2 years, and patience is not one of my virtues, but we really wanted to say, how do we create a network across the world of informed citizens that might actually be moved to do something? We are creating a textbook. Lupe, who's here in the audience, is here to do that, finish that up with us, in the hope that we will send out this is a kind of model of a program that young people can do either at the university level, at a community center, reaching across borders, or just reaching across town. But I would love to hear from the three of you because you are all in much harder circumstances, even though we're experiencing a lot of this authoritarianism here and really unbelievable ugliness and violence that I couldn't have imagined in my lifetime, but there's still no comparison to what you guys have been through. What ideas do you have? How do we make this a more global? I know that people here, David Diamond is here from La Mama. He has a global network. We have artists who are saying this stuff. We know it works if we can get to the right audiences. So I would love to now change my question and ask that one instead. What do we do? How do we get it out there? How do we make a community? Because there was a lot of commonalities that we found across the 3 different regions that we were in. Anyone who wants to go first? Iman. Yes, Iman.
I think I would build on what Hanane just said about CNN, and I would say that we have to really tap the door of the mainstream media, because being on Zoom right now between us, I wonder how many people are able to see us, how many people are able to hear our voices and benefit from what we are going to say. With all due respect to everybody that is in the hall with you, of course, which I don't see, unfortunately. I wish I was able to see them and say hello to them, of course, virtually. But the thing is, mainstream media like CNN and others, of course, are an important voice or an important platform to give voice to those who are not heard. So if we are able to take these stories and make a panel on CNN, for example, or Sky News, if we are able to really tap the door of certain MPs and say, listen, here, I mean, you keep on getting on the on the wrong side, or you're all the time supporting the powerful, but you are not giving ear to the powerless. So I think that we have to really be more active in the political arena, because art in itself is important. It is an arm of awareness. Yes, it is important with the communities, with the students, but nothing would change. I'm 100% sure nothing would change if we do not go to the um, um, power power game, to the top of the pyramid, and really talk to the politicians, because they could make the difference.
I agree. Who knows Joe Biden? Hanane or Dominique, do you want to address that? Yes, Dominique.
Yeah. Hi. That was a really enlightening answer from Iman, and I'm just going to give another perspective from coming from the Philippines, where um, from our perspective, knocking on CNN and all these major news outlets, there has been, especially in the past few years, a major distrust for them, especially coming from the Philippines. Or there has been like a great distrust in our major news outlets, and everyone who wants to fight the good fight are really saying that the fight is in social media right now, because the votes that we need, and I do agree that we need the votes, we need the good politicians up there, but the people whose votes we need aren't listening to CNN, aren't listening to BBC or the major news outlets. They are listening to fake YouTube videos, they are listening to fake Instagram and TikTok videos.
Yeah.
And that's not really a monster that we can even fight anymore. I don't think that's something that we can take back immediately. And it's actually very, very frightening that that's where the fight is. And the opposition here in the Philippines, they're only recently starting to realize that um Facebook has used the Philippines as a guinea pig. So before Trump was elected, they actually used free Facebook in the Philippines to get Duterte elected. So the Philippines were actually the guinea pigs of using social media, using fake news on social media to get corrupt fascists elected. So, and I think the opposition right now in the Philippines, the younger people, they want to fight them in that space already. So, and I don't mean commenting or replying to trolls or whatever. It's more of really knowing the language. I think that's the most important thing. Creating, how do we strengthen and create our networks? It's really learning the language and creating a new vocabulary, because like I said, this is a monster that none of us have ever experienced before. So I think a solution for us can be really learning that language and helping, especially for me as a teacher, helping my students process that, because my students are very passionate theater makers. They're very passionate about reading plays and performing, but sometimes they themselves don't know how to process the experiences that they have been through. They just want to perform, but how can they change other people as theater makers if they themselves aren't processing the events that are happening to them in a productive way? So I think for me as a teacher, my goal would be first to help my students process their experiences and then help them change others through that process.
Yes.
Here, here.
Yeah, I can build on this to say that Voltaire said once, il faut cultiver son jardin. So we have to, don't know, Maya, what's the translation? To cultivate it, each one has to cultivate his own garden or her own garden. This is on an individual level, but now this is not enough anymore. We have different problems. We have a lot of common problems together, but there are a lot of perspectives that we have to tackle the problem from or with. So we have to allow me to say we have to be radical. We have to invent totally new logics, new ways of working, alternatives of working together, cooperatives. We have to be really very creative in maybe in doing some campaign. For example, if I can cite Banksy, for example, and his wonderful work on the apartheid wall, and this idea of this hotel. What is the name of the hotel, Iman? On the border, on the what? What's
World
of? Huh?
World of
What?
World of
World of Hotel. So if you go and you search about it, it's, my goodness, what amazing idea! It made the buzz all over the world, because he bought an abandoned house very near to the wall, and he transformed it to a hotel full of camera surveillance. And the slogan of the hotel is, "We are offering you wonderful non-sight, paysage views, because you have the wall." And in every corner in this hotel, there is something very brilliant, and it made the tour of the world, and it changed a lot of minds. So we need something like that in order, on the creative level, and on the communicative level, and on social level, and on educational level. That's why I'm with you when we say that we have to also how to mix all the fields together. We cannot work anymore as theater people alone, or as teacher alone, or as sociologue alone, or as politician alone, we have to really melt together and join our efforts and work in constellation, like the universe is made of, and try very hard. It's going to be very difficult, very tough, very maybe long to achieve something, but as soon as something is, a window is open, like what happened during the Arab Spring. Of course, now all its failures, and we are paying a very high prices. But what happened is that it opens a breach in this unhuman and rocky wall of autocracy and of oppression, and people really tasted the taste of freedom, and they will continue having this in mind. They will not at all forget about it.
I'm in total agreement about the need for some kind of radical change, and I have been there for 32 years now with New Perspectives. But I think it's really interesting in the New York theater world. As much as we have a lot of people doing incredible work, highlighting injustice around the world and in this country, high artistic quality, innovative ways of making theater work, that there still is a rather isolation in the sense of a common goal, a common purpose, is that we all, as individual theater makers, as citizens, people running theater companies, we all have the same, I think, beliefs and goals. But I'm doing it over here, and somebody else is doing it over there, and we come and see each other's work and we talk about it. But I think that this need for something to bring all that together, and not just theater makers, as you said, but all kinds of artists. And the young people are really a critical component of that. We've got some here who are interns and program assistants at New Perspectives. And we have these conversations. You know, when we were doing Theater from the Streets, my secret goal, because this was right after the end of the Trump administration, was I would say, well, we're going to go to Palestine, and we're going here, there, and the other where. And then we're going to Texas and Florida and Idaho. And that has only continued along that path, that we are not immune to the level of authoritarianism and violence. We're cocooned a bit in a, quote, blue state, although some of the things that come out of this city and this state are truly shocking. for somewhat, progressive. And so there is, I think we all need to make an investment in showing everyone around the world that's comfortable right now that you may not be comfortable tomorrow. And we don't do a very good job of that in this country, in my opinion. One of the things about Venezuela that we learned was that it was the most stable democracy in South America before Hugo Chavez came to power. They were us, pretty much, maybe a little bit lower GDP, but otherwise. And so my interest continues to be, how do we get radical? And, New Perspectives is small without a lot of resources, so I'm just putting it out there. Who wants to come and be radical with the rest of us? That's what I want to know. My final question, I've touched on it a little bit myself, is the commonalities and the themes that we found across these 5 regions. That Iman, you had a breakthrough seeing the work from Venezuela, and Dominique, I'm not sure if how much you saw of the other work, but that you were kind of dropped into this, and Philippines alone, as well as India. I mean, these are continent-sized places that there is not an homogeneous population or problem. So I would love to hear. Yes, we know there's violence and authoritarianism, and those are, it's a big word. What are all the issues that we are looking at in this work, whether it's through our program, Theater from the Streets, or your own programs that you're doing? Because everybody here is working not just in their home countries, everyone who's on our panel. Dominique, would you like to address that? I mean, we did learn from the Philippines. It was shocking. Fake news and came from there. I mean, it was sort of like a Twilight Zone experience.
Yeah. It was actually interesting for me working on Theater for the Streets in the Philippines, because we were actually, me and the director, we were working with artists from different areas of the Philippines. So we're a country of 7,000 islands, each region diverse in its culture, and we have more than 100 languages. And Theater for the Streets in the Philippines saw a really good representation of some of these cultures and languages. And in fact, if not for the project, we wouldn't even have had the opportunity to work with these artists unless we traveled or they traveled. So while we may have different experiences of the authoritarian regime, we saw during this project how the issues we have experienced are very interconnected, and their corruption and authoritarianism just manifests in very different ways depending on the region, depending on the population, depending on the culture. And I'm sure it's the same if applied internationally. I've watched some of the other videos on YouTube that you've had, and it makes us all feel less alone, and at the end of the day, across many borders, learning that fascism has one face, which is complete greed and control. So that was what I really I found most I that's what I found most that's what I learned the most working on Theater for the Streets. It's that, I'm experiencing something in the Philippines, but someone who lives an island away from me is experiencing a different thing, but they're all rooted in the same corruption.
Iman or Hanane?
I don't know. You agree with me that we need radical decisions.
I'm ready. If someone has a big budget, I would be as radical as the next person.
I'm going to suggest something for the league. Why we don't take our time for the next session in order to try each minute and each day and each hour to get everybody on board, to prepare invitations letter beginning from next month, to call diplomats, to do whatever in our possibility, and to take a promise on ourselves. We will not meet only to do panels and to give the fund, to give the prize, but we want to make a real encounter where we could hear all the voices, because every time. I know many women who wanted really badly to come here, but they didn't make it because of many reasons. So to really put our effort together and to say, we will give a new meaning of this award and of our encounters, will not be holding this kind of meeting unless we are all together and unless all the voices will be heard and unless we share experiences and we show our works to each other. It's gonna take a lot of effort, but it's not impossible. And I will be with you on board till my head.
Big budget. We need a big budget.
So this is a kind of radical decisions, radical solutions. Because if not, alone I was really struggling in getting here. Yani I came in extremis, and I was able to make it really after a race of months of trying very hard on all levels. Really, it was a race against all odds. So when we put our efforts together, we will make it. Believe me, and it will have a real meaning, and it will have impacts. It will have real impacts on all of us. This is a kind of suggestion that I could make. It's a practical one, very difficult one, but it's a daring one, a possible one.
Yeah, I think it is highly possible. We usually spend 3 years putting each program together. We're an all-volunteer organization, although we have been able to give some money to some people to help put all this together. And we have the mechanism, we have the structure, the template to do this. And it is a question of resources. So we just have to think about that, whether it's money, whether it's gathering like-minded people, whether it's really harnessing the energy of all the women who have been nominated for a Gilder Coigney Award over the years. And there's almost 100, I believe, in different countries. But it's a great suggestion, and I think one we're going to take to heart. I'm looking at Joan nodding. Joan is our North Star in all of this, so she's on board. I know that. Iman, do you want to? We don't want to leave you out of this.
Yeah. Thank you, Hanane. You gave me an idea of a new Lysistrata. I think this is what we need. We have to write a new Lysistrata, something that brings all women working in this field together to really put forth how we see life. Because also the power game is between men and women, and we cannot say no about that, because we know that progressive propositions usually come from women. They do not come from men most of the time. Only few men are sometimes in our shoes, but we know what we need, and we know what has to be different. So maybe also one thing that came to my mind when Hanane was proposing is what Eve Ensler had done with the vagina monologues, when she gathered everybody in the stadium in New York and shed light on the stories of these young girls who had suffered, and who when she wrote her vagina monologues. So being there, I was invited to be in part of the crowd. So being there had changed the life of millions around the world. And Eve is still going on with the revolution, with the V-Day and all her work that she's doing. So probably we also need to, as a league, bring force together with someone like Eve and with others who are really like a moving force to make change. And she's a playwright in the end of the day. So let's get together, everybody. Let's tap the media, the different media. Let's think of something together that is a strong presence, and let's be a force, a continuous force. We have to be like a snowball. We start with an idea, but then it has to go massive and make a real change.
Yes, Dominique.
Uh, just something really quick. Coming from a teacher's perspective, someone who teaches a lot of young people and who goes does workshops with a lot of youth community theater organizations. I think an effective way to foster more dialogue and collaboration, especially since after Theater for the Streets, I actually visited the theater companies and groups that you've gathered together in Theater for the Streets. I actually visited them in person to give a workshop, and from my conversations with the participants, I think an effective way to foster more dialogue and collaboration from a youth educator's perspective is to actually publish the scripts or texts that have been staged in Theater for the Streets and distribute them across the different companies that have participated and beyond that. Because wouldn't it be interesting to see how someone from, for example, South America would interpret a text on Filipino state oppression and vice versa, and not in a way that appropriates or copies their experience, but coming from a place of learning and understanding and transforming, because this creates a network of further dialogue. And I think we'd really see an impressive impact on that, just speaking from the participants who've done Theater for the Streets in the Philippines.
So that's a lovely thing to hear, that you actually went to these companies and did workshops. We are doing that, but again, it takes some time. When you're small, we are creating the textbook that will have a methodology for how to do this. And we are including in that book a couple of the scripts from each of the regions, but then we're building a site where people can go and read all of the scripts. So that's in the works. One of the things, because we just kind of made this program up, some of the pieces were not technically a theater script. Some of them ended up being a film. Lupe's been doing the bulk of the work. It's why she's here in New York, so that we can actually get a draft of this textbook and figure out how we're going to make those scripts available. Malika Sarabhai was here in town a couple of months ago. And she also, one of her ideas I'll just put out there, was that we tried to do simultaneous festivals of work. So whether it's some of these pieces that we've done in Theater from the Streets, or we put a call out for scripts, and that in different locations, kind of like the Liz Estrada efforts. Periodically, it keeps coming back, 2,000, 3,000 years, it's still relevant. So that was another idea, is that we take the work itself and get commitments from theater companies, or cross-promoting it. So some of these companies in the Philippines may want to put some of these pieces from Venezuela in their season, or do an evening. So I think there's a lot of ideas. I'm going to ask our panelists for some closing thoughts. I'm not really quite sure how much time we have left. Okay. And there's a lot of ideas, and I think they're all valid. Some are more exciting. The radical nature of creating this group from the League, from the Gilder Coigney program, that's working every day to figure out how we get in front of politicians, how we exchange the work, how we are able to bring people together beyond just on Zoom, so that you don't have to kill yourself to come here again. And that Iman and Dominique can come, and all the rest. So closing thoughts, this is our first panel for this year's program. We've got some, if you go to the website, you can see the topics of the other ones. I don't have them memorized, but one is on education, Dominique, reaching beyond the stage through education programs. And just whatever thoughts you have about how we make a bigger difference than we've been able to make.
I promised you to read the poem.
You're going to be last.
Yeah,
You're gonna
that's
send
why.
us out the door with your poem. Iman.
I would say to continue this relationship that is active, to continue the Theater from the Streets program, because if we stop it, then it becomes like a small project, and then that's it. But if it continues, then it grows. And yes, there were many, many, many ideas around that of how to collaborate. And one of them were to use the different texts. But also, I want to say that I want to invite you to Palestine to come and see the place and the people for yourself, and not only the US people, but everyone else. And I wish my wonderful friends and colleagues from Lebanon could come. Hanan and Maya, I know that it is quite impossible, but the rest can come. And it is time to come, because when Linda came, things have changed dramatically and drastically. The awareness that they have gathered on the ground had changed their life. And you could ask Linda, and she could tell you that as well. So being on the ground is and seeing for oneself, knowing facts can change perception, and would really make a difference in the whole like future possibilities. Let's put it this way.
Dominique?
I think for me, my final thoughts would be, just to say to all the theater makers and the wonderful people involved in this, and to anyone listening, that sometimes we forget to take care of ourselves. We want to fight, we want to do so much, but we can't take care of the world if we're not taking care of ourselves. Especially sometimes in our own theater communities, we see some companies not practicing what they're preaching on stage, not taking care of their members, not taking care of their production team. So I think the way to really, move forward and start fighting is to really make sure that we are strong enough, that we ourselves as individuals and as a community are taken care of. So
And you're right, it's a point we overlook a lot. I think now we're going to hear from Hanane, her poem, and then we're going to let the audience ask some questions.
Yeah, in order for me to feel better, Dominique, and to let people around me feel better, like my family, and also in order to change perspectives, I think that arts, theater, poetry, all kinds of arts are really very good answer for that, very good tool. So I read a poem, and I'll cite its poet later. So the poem says, "Don't wake up the victims so that they don't scream. Who woke them up? Who is responsible? A wind that blows and wakes the dead. Where does it blow from? From every direction, from the homeland. And who taught them this obsolete word, the homeland? Poets who sing on the music of the rababa. Kill them. We killed them. But they invented another word, freedom. And who taught them this dissident word, this word of resistance? Revolutionaries full of zeal. Kill them. We killed them. But they learned another word, justice. Justice? Who taught them this language? Injustice taught them. So, shall we kill injustice? Shall we kill injustice? If you kill injustice, that will be your end. This is a poem from Mahmoud Darwish, from a poem called, I think, the Journal of, just a minute, Journal of Ordinary Grief. Thank you.
Thank you.
By the way, Mahmoud Darwish is the Palestinian poet, the international poet, and He's really, I don't know, he's an icon for millions of people around the world.
Thank you for sharing this poem.
Yes, thank you.
Mm.
So, Melanie, are we bringing house lights up, or?
Does anyone have a question?
Oh,
We have a few minutes for questions. For our Palestine, which is, what did I say, 7 hours ahead. Dominique is in Scotland right now, 5 hours ahead. And here we are on our time. So take advantage.
This is a response more than a question at this point. I was very moved by the call to the International Committee and to the League to have a voice. And I was very moved when you made the statement that fascism has one face. That's a very strong point to be made, and it goes along with your poem. I know that when the International Award was first established, and this idea of educational panels and having you come from other countries, one of the reasons for that was that American women artists in theater learn from international women who are in theater. And I think that's something that we can learn from each other. And I think it's very fitting for us to be able to come together with and have a unified voice, particularly with that in mind, that fascism has one face. Thank you. My name is Maxine Kern, and I'm a playwright and a dramaturg and a long-term member of.
and also
the
one of
League.
the earliest members of the International Committee, isn't that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Somebody else? Another question?
Or comment. They don't have to be questions, they can be comments. Yes, Joan?
Impossible not to make a comment. First of all, to thank you and to each of you for what you're doing. But what we're learning is that we have to go well beyond any particular organization, even one that I believe in, like the League. We need voices that come together from very different places. And we have to be careful of the ability of those voices to resonate. People in the not-for-profit world are struggling to make statements. I've been doing it for decades. But what we need are the people in control, as Hanane has pointed out. We need the people, and we need voices strong enough to reach them so that, in fact, they will understand that they are in the same jeopardy as we are, unless they act.
I do think that there's some weighty issues that we've talked about, and I know sometimes people need to process. Katrine in the back.
Yes, I'm Katrine Hilbe. I'm a member, I'm a director.
And a past president, and a past Gilder Coigney co-chair with me.
Yes, with Melody, we co-chaired that. Thank you, that was really, really interesting, and it's lovely seeing you again, Hanane. I would just urge us not to create a dichotomy between men and women. It's sad to see so many women being on the side of oppression, but they are. And there are good men out there who are on the side of progression. And I think it needs all genders of like minds to work together. That's what I have to say.
Do you want to say anything?
Who would like to? I can just pass on the baton. Oh, Penny.
Say who you are.
Hi, I'm Penelope Dean. I'm a program assistant at New Perspectives, and I'm the project coordinator from Theater from the Streets. If you've ever watched those Zoom sessions, I'm the person running it. Clicking the start and stop button, that's me. I have a lot to say to that. In regards to the different genders, I feel like there's at least talk in America of women like not being a minority anymore, and that needs to go because we are oppressed and globally. And one of the best parts about joining the league has been connecting with all these different women all over the world, and it makes my heart happy days like today where we get to all come together and see each other and meet each other in person after like being over Zoom for years and years and years. And I do agree that we need to work together as all genders, women and men. We need to see men support women. I think that that's a thing that I'd like to see more of is like how can we create a space that is obviously to help elevate women, but that men feel comfortable enough to come and join and support and uplift. If that makes any sense? Because I've had people say like, oh, the Pride Parade, that's for gay people only. And I'm like, no, like, we want everyone to celebrate. We want everyone who are gay, ally, to come together. And I feel like that should be the case with the genders too. And I feel like if we could do that globally, it'd be really, really exciting. Because the people who are in these positions and are not making a lot of these changes do happen to be men. And that's just the truth of it. So, I mean, I'd like to see a female president while I'm still alive. That'd be great. And I'd love to see more female leadership around the globe. But we can't, I fear that maybe that's not possible if we don't get the support of men. We can be as united as we can, but if there's two opposing sides, it's going to be frustrating. And it's been a joy and an honor and a blessing to be a part of this project since its creation and to witness all of these regions and meet all these people. Hi, you guys. It's so good to see you. Thank you for everything you've said today. I'm going to pass the mic on.
Everybody's so overwhelmed. You're all thinking of ways to the next, yes, the next revolution. They're getting ready. Yes, it's grassroots.
It starts from a consciousness from the bottom, and it grows, like what happened with the George Floyd. I mean, look how that has grown. That grew from a moment. That grew from a moment that got seen, and it grew. It had a natural life. And what we're seeing right now, the war that we're seeing right now, the horror that we've lived through, and now it's come to it. The fascism having one face, to me, it's not male, it's not female. I agree with Katrine, but it is. It exists. And we can speak out against it with one voice now, and it will grow. I think we have to trust that. I think as we feel here, there are so many good people. There are so many people who want peace, who want harmony, who want to see people thrive, and we don't want to see a planet destroyed. Who does? I think that it will grow, and we shouldn't be afraid of that.
So are you gonna finish up with us? Yeah.
A last word to Iman. Stay safe, please.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm a friend of Joan's. Yeah. And so this is I didn't know about your organization very much other than what I knew from Joan. And I am incredibly impressed by the inspiration and the courage that you are demonstrating in taking on these. In fact, I feel like listening to the conversation, it's not even clear to me what it is that you're focusing on in terms of what it is you are impacting and what is the change that you would like to see. And yet I feel that what you have to offer is so important and so powerful that I think there could be some value in then I'm losing my vocabulary. But focusing, articulating, I'm not sure, but direct goal, yeah, but like getting clarity and finding the language to say, okay, this is what we stand for. This is what we want to see in the world. This is where the world is. Now, how can we take who we are, what our gifts are, and impact that world in a way that, so that it resembles our vision?
You're hired. And I think that, no, it's important that this is not a theater person that is saying this to us. And those are the people we need to reach if we really want to engender the kind of change we're talking about. Is that we can continue to have these conversations amongst ourselves, and we're all brilliant and wonderful, and we love each other, but we're not getting past this group for real change. Yes, we're changing people's lives every day, young folks, for all the teachers here, or those who come to see a particular performance or are mentored by somebody, but Nancy has just really, I think, put it extremely well for what we need to do. Laura, I'm sorry. Nancy's back there. Meet new people today. But it's great, and I think, Melanie, are we done?
I think, unless someone has a burning question left or comment. You know what, I want to just say one thing, too.
Melanie's our producer today for the panels.
Also a theater director. Have you all, and I don't know if you all have, heard the phrase canary in the mine shaft? And you know what that refers to? The canaries were sent into mine shafts. If they fell over dead, they knew that the air was not good and the people had to get out. And I have always thought, artists, we are the canaries in the mine shaft. It is up to us. Yeah? Okay, so I want to invite. Do you want to say anything? No? Linda.
Come to the award ceremony tomorrow in the Bronx. The information's in your booklet. It's going to be fabulous.
Yes, I agree. And there are 3 more panel discussions this week in this very room on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And obviously, there's some empty seats. More could come, so please do that. Now, the conversation doesn't have to be over. We are having a continuing conversation reception outside. We're not really supposed to have food and beverage in this beautiful, clean, new space, but there's a great terrace right outside here. I want to thank all of the panelists, Melody, Iman, everybody, and I want to thank all of the wonderful support we've had from La Mama, true collaborators. Not only our tech friends here, but from artistic director, producer, assistant production manager, everybody here has been so helpful. Our friends John and Allison in the marketing department, they've really made it comfortable and home-like for us. Now, at the reception, I have to say this, we're going to treat you to some brownies, the recipe of our beloved Martha Coigney. Now, Martha really sets the standard for us as the last president of the International Theater Institute, both in this country and a universal leader. Again, another early member of the International Committee, inspired the International Committee in many ways. I know she brought me into the league personally. And I look to her as a mentor. She made these great brownies because first and foremost, as a cultural ambassador, she was a great hostess and always believed in having the open door and an empty chair for you to come in and sit down and tell her whatever it was you needed to tell her. So we are keeping Martha's spirit alive through the brownies. All right, so we've got them outside, and this has been a very important part of this year's award program. So come outside, enjoy, and let's see you tomorrow night in the Bronx. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Thank you so much.
Do either of you want to stay on to talk to people?
I mean, if people wants to talk.
Iman or Dominique, do you want to stay on? Yes or
It
no?
might be a bit late for me, but I can stay for like a few minutes.
If anyone
Oh,
wants
I
to
lost
talk,
you.
they're there.
Yeah.
Can you send me a WhatsApp?
Sure.